Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So, in case you're not aware, the Supreme Court has now before it, and has had before it for quite some time, the issue of affirmative action. It looks as though within the next few days, the Supreme Court may rule on that. It is obviously, transparently, violating the Constitution of the United States. You are not allowed to judge and discriminate against people on the basis of their skin color. This was a victory in the civil rights movement. And now this affirmative action has been weaponized, and it is harming people, and it is racially discriminating. By now, you've probably heard of the Harvard admissions scandal. Oh no, not the one involving rich white liberals trying to cheat their kids into Harvard. I'm speaking of the other Harvard scandal. But bracket that for a moment, right? These rich white liberals, oh yeah, we want affirmative action. We want black kids in, even though they don't qualify. But I want my kid in, even though my kid doesn't qualify. And my kid is white. Yeah, this is how much rich white liberals actually value their principles, as long as it doesn't harm their kids. Well, Harvard was limiting the number of Asian students because they were overrepresented. Harvard wants diversity. I have said this before. You want diversity, go to a zoo. You want meritocratic standards in universities and medical schools. And medical schools are admitting black students who are not qualified, and they're lowering standards. I wouldn't have cared a moment, 10 years ago, if my doctor was black, white, Asian, a woman, I could not have cared less. Or an airline pilot. I didn't pay attention, male, female, black, white, walking into the cockpit. No, I would now. United Airlines is reserving half its pilots for women and people of color. Well, you can prioritize merit and competence, or you can prioritize diversity. I know which side I'm voting on. I spoke of this previously about Sully Sullenberger. He's the pilot responsible for that miracle on the Hudson. That is aptly named. On a normal day, a normal pilot can fly your plane, right? This was no ordinary day. Sullenberger, no ordinary pilot, former Air Force pilot. This guy landed that plane on the Hudson. Nobody died. It could have been a catastrophic fail. Now, what happens if instead of Sully Sullenberger, you get one of these diversity hires? They're not going to be the best and brightest by definition. They were hired for the sake of satisfying some diversity and equity dream. No. So Harvard, not a petting zoo. This is racism. And Asian students, they don't actually represent Asians at Harvard. They represent themselves at Harvard. Why don't leftists advocate for these people of color? Asians, they're people of color. They're not white. Oh, it's because they are allegedly white adjacent, right? So they don't need your pity or handouts. And no, Asians are not white adjacent. They're not mimicking whites. Asians, they're following their own very productive cultural commitments. They, as a group, have very strong families. They don't have children out of wedlock. They value education, hard work, and they obey the law. East Indians, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, all out-earn, on average, more than whites, and their kids, on average, do better in school. Systemic oppression, if our institutions were designed to privilege people of whites, how would this be possible? It wouldn't be. The oppression narrative is a lie. Oh, it's just discriminating against blacks. Asians no, and Indians no, but just blacks. No. Nigerian immigrants, they're black. Their kids earn more money on average, and the kids do better in school, and their parents on average make more money than whites. Absolute lie. The achievement gap in the black community. the American black community, and there is a persistent achievement gap. You know what this is? It's not race. It's not systemic oppression. It's cultural commitments. Very negative cultural commitments, particularly in the black inner city. The stigma of acting white. I was speaking to an American Nigerian immigrant. I was telling her about how black kids get beat up on the school grounds by other black kids for acting white. She tells me, I know, I had to pull my kid out of school and move to a different neighborhood where he wasn't getting beat up on the playground for acting white. It was a largely white community. And teenage pregnancy, single motherhood, criminality. This is causing the black achievement gap. And pretending it's systemic racism is not going to help the black community, nor is reducing academic standards or moral standards. If a black person commits the crime, the court should be absolutely colorblind. You do the crime, you do the time, right? Just as anybody else would. No worse, but certainly no better. This social justice ideology, it's absolutely cancerous, and it is coming for you. It's already got your kids, if you have your kids in public schools and many of the private schools. I hope you'll check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. I promise you, it's important. Not because I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Bye-bye.